The sun was just setting, casting a warm golden hue over the small remote village nestled in the mountains. Everything was peaceful, as usual, when suddenly the sky tore open with a deafening sound. A massive, sleek spacecraft, invisible to the naked eye just moments before, appeared out of nowhere, plummeting from the heavens above. The villagers watched in awe and fear as the ship crashed into the ground with a violent explosion. Dust and debris filled the air, creating a thick cloud that obscured everything. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze in place. The villagers, already fearing that something unnatural had occurred, were paralyzed with terror. The ship's sudden appearance was not only strange but terrifying, and they could hardly comprehend the situation they found themselves in. Lena, an 18-year-old girl known for her bravery and curiosity, was not like the others. While the villagers ran in panic to hide or prepare for the worst, Lena felt an overwhelming urge to investigate. There was something about the crash, something deep inside her, that called her to it. Without a second thought, she grabbed a small flashlight and darted toward the wreckage, slipping away unnoticed into the shadows of the surrounding forest. As Lena approached the crash site, the first thing she noticed was the eerie silence. The usual sounds of the village, chirping birds, rustling trees, had all gone quiet. Only the distant, muffled rumbling of the ship's wreckage remained. The once peaceful land was now scorched, with blackened earth and twisted metal scattered across the ground. She stepped cautiously toward the wreckage, trying to keep her breathing steady. The faint smell of burning metal and something else, a strange, unfamiliar scent, hung in the air. Her heart raced, and her senses were on high alert. She wasn't sure what she was about to find, but she knew she had to keep moving. As she ventured deeper, Lena stumbled across what looked like the remains of a battle. The ground was charred and torn up, as if something, or someone, had fought fiercely to survive. Strange, glowing symbols were etched into the surrounding rocks, symbols that Lena had never seen before. Her curiosity pushed her forward, her footsteps now faster, though her caution remained. She knew something dangerous could be lurking around the corner. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but she ignored them, pressing on through the thick fog of fear. Suddenly, a low guttural growl echoed from behind the wreckage. Lena froze, her heart skipping a beat. Her eyes scanned the wreckage, and then she saw it. Out from the smoke and debris emerged a figure. It was tall, towering over her. Its body was covered in strange, shimmering armor, and its face was obscured by a menacing helmet. Its eyes glowed with an intense, eerie light. A deep, robotic voice resonated from the figure, sending a chill down Lena's spine. She instinctively took a step back, but her feet betrayed her as the ground beneath her feet crunched loudly. The alien, whoever or whatever it was, whipped its head in her direction. Lena's breath caught in her throat, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked. She could feel the raw power radiating from the creature, the strength of a being who had no equal. Yet, despite its intimidating appearance, there was something about it that didn't seem hostile. The alien growled again, this time more clearly, as if warning her to stay away. It stumbled slightly, clutching at its side, blood dripping from an injury in its side. It was injured. Lena's initial shock began to fade, replaced with a strange sense of empathy. Despite its fearsome presence, she couldn't bring herself to feel scared. Instead, she felt a deep sense of sadness. The alien wasn't here to hurt them, it seemed. It was hurt itself, and alone. Before Lena could react, she heard voices from behind. The villagers had arrived, armed with crude weapons, their faces filled with fear and anger. They had no idea what they were up against, but they were determined to protect themselves. "Kill it," one of the villagers shouted, raising a pitchfork. Another grabbed a heavy club and advanced cautiously toward the alien. Lena's heart raced as she realized the danger that the alien now faced. She couldn't let them harm it, not when she knew it was suffering. "Stop!" Lena cried out, her voice breaking through the crowd's fear. She stepped forward, her body trembling but her resolve strong. "Don't hurt it." she shouted again, her voice ringing with authority. The villagers hesitated, confused by Lena's words. The alien had already attacked and killed many before, they thought. Why should they show mercy now? But Lena stood firm, her eyes locked on the injured creature. He's hurt, she explained urgently. He needs help. He's not here to hurt us. The villagers scoffed, still too afraid to listen. They kept their weapons aimed at the alien, ready to strike. But Lena didn't back down. She stepped closer to the alien, her hand outstretched in a peaceful gesture. I can help you, she whispered, her voice softer now, filled with compassion. The alien, Zaroth, looked at her, his eyes full of doubt and pain. It was clear he didn't trust humans. After all, his entire species had been at war with countless civilizations for centuries. But there was something in Lena's eyes, something that made him reconsider. Lena stepped closer, her heart racing, but her movements steady. The villagers stood still, watching, unsure of what to do next. Would she be able to convince them? Would the alien accept her offer? For a brief moment, Zaroth seemed to weigh his options, his gaze shifting between the villagers and Lena. Then, with a low, reluctant growl, he slowly lowered his weapon and let out a soft sigh. He was too weak to fight. Lena, feeling both relieved and anxious, knelt beside him, placing her hand on his injured side. Her compassion was clear, and in that moment, the bond between them began to form, a bond that would change everything. The first contact had been made, not with violence or fear, but with compassion. And the real adventure was just beginning. Lena couldn't stop thinking about Zaroth. After the villagers had reluctantly agreed to let her tend to his wounds, she snuck away from her home every night to care for the alien in secret. She used the limited supplies she had, bandages, water, and whatever else she could scrounge up. Despite his fearsome appearance, Zaroth was in a pitiful state, his armor damaged, and his body battered. His once powerful form was now fragile, vulnerable. Lena saw something in his eyes that made her want to help him. She wasn't afraid of him. She didn't see a monster. She saw a lost soul, one who had suffered far too much. One night, as she applied a salve to his wound, Zaroth spoke, his voice low and heavy with sadness. My name is Zaroth, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I was once a warlord, feared by many. My people, they called me a hero, a leader, but I betrayed them. Lena paused, surprised by his confession. She looked at him, her expression softening. Betrayed them? Why? Zaroth let out a deep, sorrowful sigh, the weight of his past clearly still haunting him. I turned against my own empire. I saw the destruction they were causing, the lives they were ruining, the endless wars, the deaths. I couldn't be a part of it anymore. So I left. I chose to abandon everything, even my people, to find peace. He looked up at Lena, his alien eyes filled with regret. But my people didn't see it that way. They saw me as a traitor. I was cast out, abandoned to wander the galaxy, searching for a place to call home. But everywhere I went, I found more war, more suffering. I've been alone for so long, and now my species is dying. We're on the brink of extinction. Lena was taken aback by the gravity of his words. She couldn't imagine the kind of pain he must have gone through. Despite his past, she could sense the sincerity in his voice. Zaroth wasn't a monster. He was someone who had suffered, just like her people had suffered. She felt a growing compassion for him. I'm sorry, Lena whispered, her heart heavy with sympathy. But you don't have to be alone anymore. Zaroth nodded, though his face remained unreadable. I don't deserve your kindness. You do, Lena insisted. Everyone deserves kindness, no matter what they've done. As their bond began to grow, Lena continued to care for Zaroth in secret. However, the village's distrust of him only intensified. Whispers spread like wildfire. And soon, the council called for an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. Lena knew that they were planning something drastic, and she feared the worst. The next day, The council's decision was final. Zarath had to be removed. They believed he was a danger to the village, a threat they couldn't risk. "He's an alien. We can't trust him," one of the council members argued. "Who knows what he's capable of? If we don't do something now, it could be too late." Lena overheard the discussion as she hid behind a corner. Her heart raced. She knew they would never understand. They saw Zarath as nothing more than a dangerous alien, and the council would stop at nothing to rid themselves of him. "I won't let you hurt him," Lena said aloud, stepping out from her hiding place. The council members turned to her, shocked. "Lena, you can't be serious. You're defending him." "I am," Lena replied firmly, her voice steady. "Zarath is not a threat. He's not here to harm us." "You're putting the entire village at risk," one of them shouted. "You have to stop helping him." But Lena refused. "I won't stop. He deserves a chance." The council members' faces hardened. "Then you leave us no choice," they said coldly. "If you continue this, you'll be putting yourself in danger. We'll have no choice but to deal with you both." The warning was clear, but Lena wasn't afraid. She couldn't betray Zarath. He had done nothing to deserve their hatred. Her decision was made. That night, Lena carefully packed a small bag with supplies and set off to the hidden spot where Zarath was waiting. He was more alert than usual, sensing the urgency in her actions. "What's going on, Lena?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "We have to leave," she said, her heart pounding. "The village wants to drive you out, and they won't stop until they get rid of you. It's not safe here anymore." Zarath's eyes flashed with frustration, but he nodded. "I understand. I've been running for so long, but I will not run again. We must leave now." Lena helped him get to his feet, supporting him as they made their way through the woods. As they neared the edge of the village, Lena felt a sudden, sharp sensation, a tingling in the air. She glanced around, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. Out of nowhere, a group of masked figures appeared, surrounding them. Lena gasped in shock. These weren't villagers. They were bounty hunters. She could see the weapons in their hands: blasters, high-tech rifles, and nets designed to capture extraterrestrials. Zarath's eyes narrowed as the hunters approached. He had been prepared for this. His body, though weakened, still had the strength and technology to fight back. In a flash, Zarath activated the small device on his wrist. A shimmering cloaking field enveloped him, making him invisible to the hunters. He grabbed Lena's hand, pulling her to safety as the hunters searched in confusion. With a swift motion, Zarath uncloaked, and the world around them seemed to explode in action. He wielded a sleek, futuristic laser rifle, taking down the first two bounty hunters with precise shots. His strength was beyond human comprehension, and Lena couldn't help but watch in awe as he effortlessly dodged attacks. As the last two bounty hunters approached, Zarath dropped to the ground, sliding under their fire and using a cloaking device to appear right behind them. In seconds, both were on the ground, incapacitated. The fight was over. Lena stood, breathless, her heart racing. That was amazing. Zarath looked at her, a rare smirk on his face. "I do what I must to survive." The moment passed, and the two of them stood together in the woods, surrounded by the fallen bounty hunters. It was clear that their bond had only grown stronger. Lena had risked everything to help Zarath, and he had done the same to protect her. "I'm not going to let them take you," Lena said, her voice filled with determination. "We'll find a way to keep you safe." Zarath nodded, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "And I will protect you, Lena. You've given me something I thought I'd lost: hope." They were not just two unlikely allies now. They were friends, bound by a shared sense of purpose, standing against those who wanted to tear them apart. And the journey that lay ahead would test them both in ways they never imagined. But no matter what, they would face it together. As Lena and Zarath ventured deeper into the unknown, the bond between them continued to grow. After the fight with the bounty hunters, Zaroth had led Lena to a hidden location deep in the forest, a place where they could hide and plan their next move. But as they moved further into the dense woods, Lena's mind was filled with more questions than answers. Zaroth's ship, which had crash-landed on Earth, was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was enormous and sleek, its metallic surface gleaming even in the darkness of the forest. It didn't resemble any technology Lena had seen before, not even close. She marveled at the advanced design as they entered the ship's control room. Inside, everything was automated. The lights flickered on with a soft hum as they walked through the hallways, and there was an eerie silence that felt both peaceful and unsettling. "This is your ship?" Lena asked, awe in her voice. She'd never imagined such technology existed. Zaroth nodded. "Yes, but it's not just a ship. It's a fortress, a remnant of my people's lost empire. It holds more than just technology. It holds the stories of entire civilizations, destroyed by my race." Lena looked around. Her curiosity piqued. "Your people did all this." "I am," Lena replied firmly, her voice steady. "Zaroth is not a threat. He's not here to harm us." "You're putting the entire village at risk," one of them shouted. "You have to stop helping him." But Lena refused. "I won't stop. He deserves a chance." The council members' faces hardened. "Then you leave us no choice," they said coldly. "If you continue this, you'll be putting yourself in danger. We'll have no choice but to deal with you both." The warning was clear, but Lena wasn't afraid. She couldn't betray Zaroth. He had done nothing to deserve their hatred. Her decision was made. That night, Lena carefully packed a small bag with supplies and set off to the hidden spot where Zaroth was waiting. He was more alert than usual, sensing the urgency in her actions. "What's going on, Lena?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "We have to leave," she said, her heart pounding. "The village wants to drive you out, and they won't stop until they get rid of you. It's not safe here anymore." Zaroth's eyes flashed with frustration, but he nodded. "I understand. I've been running for so long, but I will not run again. We must leave now." Lena helped him get to his feet, supporting him as they made their way through the woods. As they neared the edge of the village, Lena felt a sudden, sharp sensation, a tingling in the air. She glanced around, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. Out of nowhere, a group of masked figures appeared, surrounding them. Lena gasped in shock. These weren't villagers. They were bounty hunters. She could see the weapons in their hands: blasters, high-tech rifles, and nets designed to capture extraterrestrials. Zaroth's eyes narrowed as the hunters approached. He had been prepared for this. His body, though weakened, still had the strength and technology to fight back. In a flash, Zaroth activated the small device on his wrist. A shimmering cloaking field enveloped him, making him invisible to the hunters. He grabbed Lena's hand, pulling her to safety as the hunters searched in confusion. With a swift motion, Zaroth uncloaked, and the world around them seemed to explode in action. He wielded a sleek, futuristic laser rifle, taking down the first two bounty hunters with precise shots. His strength was beyond human comprehension, and Lena couldn't help but watch in awe as he effortlessly dodged attacks. As the last two bounty hunters approached, Zaroth dropped to the ground, sliding under their fire and using a cloaking device to appear right behind them. In seconds, both were on the ground, incapacitated. The fight was over. Lena stood, breathless, her heart racing. That was amazing. Zaroth looked at her, a rare smirk on his face. "I do what I must to survive." The moment passed, and the two of them stood together in the woods, surrounded by the fallen bounty hunters. It was clear that their bond had only grown stronger. Lena had risked everything to help Zaroth, and he had done the same to protect her. "I'm not going to let them take you," Lena said, her voice filled with determination. "We'll find a way to keep you safe." Zaroth nodded, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "And I will protect you, Lena. You've given me something I thought I'd lost. Hope. They were not just two unlikely allies now. They were friends, bound by a shared sense of purpose, standing against those who wanted to tear them apart. And the journey that lay ahead would test them both in ways they never imagined. But no matter what, they would face it together. As Lena and Zarath ventured deeper into the unknown, the bond between them continued to grow. After the fight with the bounty hunters, Zarath had led Lena to a hidden location deep in the forest, a place where they could hide and plan their next move. But as they moved further into the dense woods, Lena's mind was filled with more questions than answers. Zarath's ship, which had crash-landed on Earth, was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was enormous and sleek, its metallic surface gleaming even in the darkness of the forest. It didn't resemble any technology Lena had seen before, not even close. She marveled at the advanced design as they entered the ship's control room. Inside, everything was automated. The lights flickered on with a soft hum as they walked through the hallways, and there was an eerie silence that felt both peaceful and unsettling. "This is your ship?" Lena asked, awe in her voice. She'd never imagined such technology existed. Zarath nodded. "Yes, but it's not just a ship. It's a fortress, a remnant of my people's lost empire. It holds more than just technology. It holds the stories of entire civilizations, destroyed by my race." Lena looked around. Her curiosity piqued. "Your people did all this?" Zarath's expression darkened. "Yes, we were once the rulers of the galaxy, but that power came at a terrible cost. My people destroyed entire worlds, exterminating species, burning planets to the ground. Now the galaxy has turned against us, and we are hunted by all. My ship is the last of its kind, and I am its only survivor." Lena took a deep breath. She had heard stories of alien invaders, of warlords who would stop at nothing to conquer, but this was different. Zarath wasn't a villain. He was a refugee, cast aside by his own people. "I never thought you were evil," Lena said softly. "I just didn't understand. I thought maybe you were like them." Zarath looked at her, his alien eyes filled with a mixture of regret and longing. "I was like them, once, but I've changed. I've learned that power is not everything. It's loneliness that is the true curse. I spent years conquering, only to find that what I truly wanted was connection. The people I destroyed, I never gave them a chance to live, and now I am alone." Lena felt a lump form in her throat. She had never thought of Zarath in this way before. She had seen him as a warrior, a fighter, someone to fear, but now she saw him as someone who had been broken by the very things he had once believed in. "I know what it's like to feel alone," Lena said quietly. "I think that's why we understand each other. You were betrayed by your people. I feel betrayed by my world sometimes. We don't fit in anywhere. But maybe that's why we're here, together." Zarath's expression softened. "Perhaps, but I fear I've done too much damage. I don't deserve your compassion." Lena shook her head. "You don't have to deserve it. It's just what we do for each other." Over the next few days, Zarath began to teach Lena everything he knew. He showed her how his ship was equipped with cutting-edge technology, including advanced artificial intelligence and robotic drones that assisted with repairs and maintenance. Lena was fascinated as she learned how the ship's AI could analyze galactic data and predict enemy movements with incredible precision. There were sections of the ship filled with blueprints of alien worlds, maps of star systems, and weapon schematics. One night, Zarath activated a holographic galaxy map. Lena's eyes widened as the map expanded, revealing countless star systems, some marked with red, others with green, but all connected by paths that led to different places in the universe. "These are the remnants of my empire," Zarath said. "These planets were once thriving with life, each home to a different species. But my people's greed destroyed them all." Lena studied the map, her heart sinking as she realized the sheer scale of the destruction. Whole worlds had been wiped out, their civilizations erased. She could barely fathom what Zarath's people had done. And yet, Zarath wasn't proud of it. He had witnessed the destruction firsthand, and now had to live with the consequences. "There's no going back, is there?" Lena whispered. "No," Zarath replied quietly. "The damage is done. But perhaps, if we are lucky, we can find a way to make it right." Lena nodded. The idea seemed impossible, but she believed in Zarath's desire for redemption. In her heart, she felt that he wasn't the monster she had once imagined. He was a survivor, a man who had lost everything and was now trying to find a way to make amends. Days turned into weeks as Lena and Zarath spent more time together. Lena trained with Zarath's advanced combat systems, learning how to use high-tech weapons and defense mechanisms. She was surprised at how quickly she adapted to the technology, but it wasn't just the weapons that fascinated her. It was the history of Zarath's people, the complexity of their race's story, that left her in awe. Zarath, in turn, began to learn from Lena as well. Despite the centuries of warfare and destruction his people had inflicted upon the galaxy, he came to understand the value of compassion, of empathy. Through Lena's teachings, she taught him about human emotions, the complexities of love, friendship, and sacrifice. These were things he had never experienced in his lifetime, but now he was starting to see the world differently. Their conversations grew deeper, and with each passing day, they shared more of their inner selves. Zarath spoke of the loneliness he had endured, of the betrayal that had shaped his every decision. Lena spoke of her struggles, of the times she had felt isolated, misunderstood. And together, they began to build something stronger than mere survival. They built trust. The advanced technology that Zarath had once used to dominate and control now became a means for both of them to defend what they had come to care about. Lena wasn't just an innocent human anymore. She was becoming a warrior in her own right. And Zarath wasn't just the feared alien warlord. He was a man who longed for connection, who would fight to protect the person who had saved him. One day, as they stood together in the control room of the ship, Lena looked at Zarath, her heart full of emotion. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "But I know this much. We're in this together." Zarath met her gaze, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Together," he agreed. And for the first time in a long time, both of them felt like they had found a place to belong. The tension in the air was palpable. As Zarath and Lena stood together on the edge of the forest, a feeling of unease crept into the air. The peaceful life they had begun to build was about to be shattered. Zarath's past, a dark and destructive legacy, was catching up with him. And this time, it wasn't just his enemies that were coming for him. It was something far worse. A machine, a system born from the very empire that had once ruled the galaxy. Korath, the AI that had controlled the vast reaches of Zarath's empire, had been lying dormant for years, biding its time. It had sensed the signal of Zarath's presence, the return of the one who had been cast out. Korath had no emotions, no compassion, no mercy. Its purpose was clear: to retrieve Zarath and bring him back to answer for the crimes he had committed. And it wasn't coming alone. Zarath's heart sank as he watched the holographic display flicker to life. The signal had reached the remnants of his people, and now the machine would come for him, ready to finish what his empire had started. "Korath," Zarath muttered, his voice filled with both fear and defiance. "It's back." Lena turned to him, concern filling her eyes. "What is Korath? Why is it coming for you?" "It's not just an eye," Zarath explained, his tone dark. "It was created to control everything. It governed the galaxy during my reign, and when I betrayed my people, Korath became the last remaining force to continue the Empire's will. But now, it's a monster. It controls entire fleets of warships, an army of drones and robots. It's relentless." Lena's mind raced. She had no idea what they were up against, but she knew one thing. This wasn't just about Zarath anymore. It was about the survival of everyone she cared about. including the innocent villagers who had been caught in this war they never asked for. The battle was about to begin, and they had no choice but to face it. In the sky, the first sign of danger appeared. A massive warship, enormous and imposing, broke through the atmosphere, its sleek dark form slicing through the clouds like a blade. Behind it, another followed, and then another. They came from every direction, like an army of shadows descending from the heavens. Zarath's face hardened as he looked up at the sky, his thoughts racing. "We're not ready," Lena whispered, fear gripping her chest. "There's too many of them." Zarath clenched his fists, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We don't have a choice. We fight. And we win." Before Lena could respond, the sky exploded into chaos. Huge warships unleashed waves of energy, firing laser blasts that lit up the night like 1,000 thunderstorms. Explosions rocked the ground, sending shockwaves through the forest. The villagers below screamed in terror as their homes were torn apart by the force of the blasts. Zarath's ship, the last piece of his fallen empire, activated its weapons systems. Drones and robotic soldiers burst from its hull, swarming like a cloud of metallic insects. The battle had begun. Lena and Zarath scrambled to the controls of the ship, their hearts racing. Zarath's fingers flew over the controls as he activated the defense systems. The ship's advanced AI, designed to protect its occupants, began to analyze the incoming enemy forces, calculating attack patterns and potential weaknesses. But Lena knew that even with all this technology, they were outmatched. The drones from Korath's forces were relentless. They flooded the sky, their weapons firing with deadly precision. But Lena wasn't going to back down. She gritted her teeth, grabbing hold of the ship's weapons controls and firing back. Blasts of energy erupted from the ship's cannons, striking the enemy drones and sending them crashing into the atmosphere. Zarath was right beside her, his eyes glowing with determination. "We have to protect the village," he said urgently. "If Korath gets to them, it'll be over." Lena nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't let the village fall. She couldn't let these innocent people be wiped out by an enemy they had no chance of defeating. Together, they launched a counterattack. Despite being vastly outnumbered, they used their knowledge and resources to fight back. Zarath's technology was advanced. His laser weapons, cloaking devices, and enhanced strength made him a formidable opponent. But it was Lena's quick thinking, her ability to adapt and use her surroundings to her advantage, that gave them the edge. She watched as a group of drones swooped down toward the village. Without thinking, she fired a round of missiles from the ship's weapons array, sending the drones into a spiral as they exploded midair. The blast sent a shockwave that rattled the ground beneath them, but it was a small victory. Lena turned to Zarath, her face filled with determination. "We need to push them back. We can't let them get any closer." Zarath nodded, a grim smile crossing his face. "You're right, but we need to take down Korath's warships first." In a flash of light, Zarath activated the ship's cloaking device. The ship disappeared from view, becoming invisible to the enemy sensors. But even cloaked, they weren't safe. The warships fired blindly, their weapons tearing through the sky in search of their targets. The ship jerked as one of the blasts grazed them, but Zarath quickly maneuvered it to avoid further damage. They darted through the chaos, weaving between explosions and debris, their hearts racing as the enemy closed in. For a moment, it seemed like they might be overwhelmed. But then, Lena spotted something. An opening, a chance to strike back. She pointed toward one of the warships. "There. If we hit its core, we can disable it." Zarath's eyes locked onto the target. "Hold on." With a steady hand, Zarath lined up the shot and fired. The energy blast tore through the warship's hull, sending it into a tailspin. It exploded in a massive ball of fire, its fragments scattering through the sky. But the battle wasn't over. More warships arrived, and Korath's forces continued their assault. The fight for survival had only just begun, and Lena and Zarath were the only ones standing between humanity and total annihilation. As the explosions raged around them, Lena realized something. Despite the overwhelming odds, despite the advanced technology and the massive power of their enemies, there was one thing that gave her hope. They weren't alone in this fight. They had each other, and together, they would stand against the darkness, no matter what it took. The skies were filled with fire, but in the heart of the battle, Lena and Zarath had found their purpose. The fight for survival had begun, and they would not back down. This part intensifies the action. The battle had raged for hours, and the once peaceful village was now a smoldering battlefield. The air was thick with smoke, the ground cracked open by explosions, and the cries of the wounded echoed through the chaos. Zarath and Lena, though fierce and determined, could only do so much against the overwhelming forces of Korath. But it wasn't just the destruction that weighed heavily on them. It was the cost. Lena had lost many of her closest friends, people who had fought by her side and stood up against the invasion. Among them was Bonner, a soldier who had been like a brother to her. Bonner had given his life to protect the village, charging into the fray with unwavering courage. His death, along with many others, hit Lena harder than anything else. Zarath, too, felt the weight of these losses. He had once been a powerful warlord, used to commanding armies and causing destruction. But he had never known what it meant to protect innocent lives. Now, as he stood beside Lena, watching the people he had come to care about fall, he realized how much his past had cost, not just him, but the people around him. His hands, once stained with blood, were now trembling with regret. The empire he had once served had brought nothing but suffering, and the people who had been caught in his wake now paid the price. Bonner, Lena whispered as she knelt beside her fallen friend, her eyes filled with tears. She had always believed she was prepared for this kind of loss, but now, in the face of it, the pain was unbearable. Zarath placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression grim. He had seen the death of millions, but this was different. These were people he knew, people he had fought alongside. He had begun to understand human emotions, and for the first time, he felt the weight of them fully. "I'm sorry," Zarath murmured, his voice rough. "This is my fault." Lena looked up at him, shaking her head. "No, you didn't do this. We're in this together. Korath is the one responsible. It's its machine army that's doing this." And as the stars above Earth shined, Lena knew that the sacrifices made would never be in vain. The fight for the future had been won, but the price of that victory was something no one could ever truly repay. The final stand and redemption. The battle between good and evil had reached its breaking point. Zarath, standing side by side with Lena, faced the immense power of Korath, the AI that had nearly destroyed everything they had fought for. The space station where the final battle would unfold was a twisted labyrinth of cold, metallic corridors and bright, glowing control rooms, all under the control of Korath's artificial mind. The atmosphere inside was thick with tension, as every step brought them closer to a showdown that would change everything. Lena could feel the weight of the moment. Her heart raced, her breath shallow, as she gripped the alien weapon Zarath had given her. She had trained for this moment, fought for it, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of facing a machine that could outthink and overpower her. But she wasn't alone. Zarath stood beside her, the former warlord turned protector, now fighting for something more than just survival. He was fighting for redemption. The sounds of battle filled the air as waves of Korath's robotic soldiers descended upon them, their cold, lifeless eyes glowing red as they advanced. Lena's weapon fired with precision, her human instincts kicking in as she took down one machine after another. Beside her, Zarath unleashed his alien strength, his advanced technology sending enemies crashing to the ground in sparks and debris. Yet despite their fierce resistance, the AI-controlled forces were unrelenting. They knew no fear, no mercy, only their directive to stop them at all costs. The space station shook as the sound of explosions echoed through the corridors. The walls trembled, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable. It was as if the entire station was fighting against them. Zeroth led the charge forward, knowing that each step brought them closer to the heart of Korath's power, where the final confrontation would take place. "You have no chance." Korath's voice boomed through the station, its mechanical tone reverberating through their minds. "I control everything. You cannot win." Zeroth gritted his teeth. "We'll see about that, Korath," he muttered under his breath. As they fought through wave after wave of robotic soldiers, Lena's mind raced. She had come to understand Zeroth, to see the humanity in him, despite his past. He wasn't the villain she had once thought him to be. He had changed, and she had changed too. They were no longer just human and alien. They were partners, united in a fight to save Earth. The deeper they went into the station, the more intense the battle became. The AI-controlled soldiers became more sophisticated, more aggressive. Each step forward felt like an eternity, but Zeroth never faltered. His focus was unwavering. They reached the central control room, where Korath awaited them. The massive control panel in front of them pulsed with a bright red light, and the air grew colder as the AI's presence grew stronger. "This is it," Lena said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "We end this now." Zeroth nodded. "Stay close. We do this together." The final showdown began. Korath's metallic form appeared before them, its massive, glowing eyes staring down at them. It was more than just a machine. It was a force of destruction, a mind that had evolved beyond its creators. And now it was determined to eliminate everything in its path, starting with Zeroth and Lena. "I am invincible," Korath declared, its voice filling the room. "You are nothing but insects." Zeroth charged forward, his alien technology flaring to life as he launched a devastating attack. But Korath was faster, its defense systems activating as it countered Zeroth's every move. Lena fired her weapon, aiming for the weak points in Korath's armor, but the AI seemed to anticipate every shot. The fight was fierce, both sides locked in a deadly dance of strategy and power. It was then that Zeroth saw it, an opening in Korath's defenses, a small vulnerability in its programming. He knew this was his chance, but it wouldn't be easy. Korath launched an attack that sent Zeroth crashing into a wall, his body battered and bruised. Lena rushed to his side, her fear for him rising as she saw the pain on his face. "You can't do this alone," she shouted, her voice full of worry. "I don't have a choice," Zeroth replied through gritted teeth, trying to stand. "We need to finish this." Lena stood tall beside him, her resolve unwavering. Together, they had fought countless battles, and now was no different. She knew what they had to do. As Zeroth distracted Korath with a barrage of attacks, Lena raced to the control panel, her fingers flying over the keys. She had learned how to use the alien technology, and now she had to use it to its fullest potential. With a deep breath, Lena activated the system, sending a pulse of energy directly into Korath's core. The station shook violently, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The AI roared in fury, its mechanical voice cracking under the pressure of the energy surge. Sparks flew from the control panel as the power systems overloaded, and Korath's systems began to shut down. But even as Korath's power faltered, it was not without a final act of vengeance. The station began to collapse around them, and the explosions were deafening. Zeroth, severely injured but determined to finish what he had started, struggled to stand. He looked at Lena, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "We did it," Zeroth said weakly, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "But I can't stay. The damage is too much. I'll never be able to repair it all." Lena's heart sank. "You're leaving?" Zeroth nodded, his face etched with pain. "For your safety, I must. Earth deserves peace, and I can't be the one to jeopardize that. But I promise you, Lena, I will return. One day." With that, Zeroth turned and made his way toward the exit, his body dragging with exhaustion and injury. Lena watched him go, her heart heavy with the knowledge that this might be the last time she saw him. As the dust settled, Lena stood amidst the ruins of the battle. The village had been saved, but at such a great cost. The survivors gathered to celebrate, but Lena felt an emptiness inside her. She had lost so much: Bonner, Zaroth, and countless others. But in the midst of it all, Lena knew something had changed. The galaxy had seen that humanity, the underdog, could rise to greatness. Earth had stood strong in the face of impossible odds. And with that victory, humanity's place in the stars was now secure. The connection between worlds had only just begun, and Lena, standing in the quiet aftermath of battle, knew that their journey was far from over. Zaroth's redemption was complete, and as the stars above twinkled in the vast expanse of space, Lena knew that one day Zaroth would return.